Well, I'll make a few comments about the exercise that I gave you about the cross-price elasticity of demand. So what I'm showing you here is the basic information that I gave you. The firm is concerned with a couple of other suppliers of a substitute product, big corporation and bigger corporation. And you're told the following. You're told that the cross-price elasticity with bigger is 2, and for big it's only 0.5. So what does that mean in plain English? Well, clearly it's just saying something like, if bigger was to raise its price by, say, 1%, that's going to raise our sales by 2%. On the other hand, if big raises its price by 1%, so that would appear down here, the percentage change in the demand for the firm's product would just be half of 1%. And of course, this works in the other direction as well. So we could imagine a 1% decrease in bigger's price. That's going to represent a 2% decline in our sales. So just to summarize what this is saying, it's saying that the customers must see our product as a closer substitute for the product of bigger for some reason. So if bigger changes its price by a certain percentage, the response of customers is going to be bigger, in fact 4 times as big, than it would be if big corporation changes its price. So these numbers that are being shown here are just giving us some idea of the strength of substitutability between the goods. Now that's useful to know because we want to know whose actions are going to influence our sales more. So whose product is a closer substitute for our own? We go back to the familiar demand curve story. In the case of substitute goods, if there's a price decrease for some substitute, we know that that's going to, as we can see here, reduce the demand for our good at any given price by some certain amount. So this is putting some actual measure of that responsiveness. If the responsiveness is small, then that's saying that perhaps the other seller is a long way away, or maybe their good is really quite different from what we're selling. The second example looks at a rather different relationship. So in this case, it's looking at goods that are used together. In other words, they're complementary. Or we would say that the goods are complements with each other. If you use one, you've got to use the other one. So if you use a truck, in this case, you've got to use gasoline. So if the price of gasoline goes up by quite a lot, and we see a big decline in the demand for the trucks, then we can just again take the ratio of those two things, the 40% decline in demand, as the price of the good goes up by 20%. That gives us a relationship of -2. So we could ask, why is that negative? What's that telling us? Well, that's just telling us, obviously, that the price and the quantity are moving in opposite directions, which is hardly surprising if we think about the example. If the price of gasoline goes up, the demand for trucks goes down. So we're going to have a negative number here. So that negative number is just telling us that these goods are complements. And again, the strength of that relationship will be reflected in the absolute value of the size of that number. So if this number is very small, then there would really be very little relationship. So it's easy to think of, say, two goods which are complementary like that, but the relationship might be very weak. Earlier I gave the example of the price of electricity going up. Well, if you're heating your house with electricity, then there might be some reflection of that, let's say, in the demand for houses that are heated in that way. But if we're, say, thinking of something like the price of electricity going up, and we want to know how much is the demand for cell phones going to be affected, or rechargeable electric toothbrushes, something like that, obviously the price of electricity is not going to be important. So we'd expect something like a cross-price elasticity of 0. Okay, so that concludes the discussion of the relationship across different markets like this.